Hello everyone. So this is going to be a Patreon only video, and I just want to thank all my new Patreons. And yeah, so this video is not going to be on YouTube, so I can speak a little bit more freely, and we can discuss ancient France, or New Old World France, whatever you want to call it, the merging of the inheritors with the old world as they slowly replace it with the new world. And we can see that is very evident here with the horse and buggies juxtaposed with the ancient Tartarian architecture. And, you know, as I've spoken before in previous videos, I just find it absolutely absurd and hilarious how we're using these beasts of burden to get around. But then you look at the buildings and they obviously are evidence of higher technology. It just makes absolutely no sense that people would live in such lavish buildings and then have to clean up horse crap off the street and breathe in Lord knows what out of the factories, when it's obvious that there was a cleaner technology to create these buildings. And then we see everybody wearing the same stuff, you know, the top hats and the bowler hats of the men, and the ridiculous dresses of the women. Now, don't get me wrong, I mean, it's nice stuff, but how come everybody's wearing the same thing? It's like they got here from wherever they came from, and they were just given a kit. And I've spoke about that before. And the men all have a very distinct style, you know, and the boys have a very distinct style. And it's like everybody's just walking around like it's Disneyland. You know, like nobody actually, like who's actually doing any work? Now people say, oh, this is the upper class, this is the bourgeoisie of France, you know, and that's cool. You know, everybody has an entitled opinion based on the mainstream narrative, but we need to kind of strip it back a little bit and really analyze these old films and see what was really going on here. So obviously we have the Eiffel Tower looking very, you know, Parisian as usual, and this was shortly after it was constructed. These films are early 1900s. You know, here we have a woman smiling for the camera. And that's the other thing, is we have these types of films in New York, San Francisco, Chicago, St. Louis, where it just seems like everybody knows what's going on. Like it's a planned thing, like they got certain people to show up to give off a certain vibe, but to make it look real. They wanted it to have a certain aura of authenticity, but at the same time, I think there was a effort to portray these big cities a certain way, and then they hit all the undesirable people, and they brought only the well-dressed, the well-behaved, the well-mannered people to shoot these little segments, basically, just to kind of show everybody else in the world, oh, this is what it's like in Paris, this is what it's like in San Francisco, this is what it's like in New York, and so on and so forth. And maybe that's why everybody looks the same, because you have to think that film and the equipment and the whole rigmarole to get one of these films to look halfway decent cost a lot of money, there's a lot of resources at the time, so they don't want to waste it with undesirables. So it's a possibility that beforehand the crew organizes with the city to make sure that they only capture what they want to capture, so that when they show these to other people across the world, they don't see, you know, anything that might deter them from visiting, perhaps, or to create this illusion 100 years later that this is what it was like 100 years ago. And that's the other thing with this pattern. It seems to be a 100-year pattern. 1920, 2020, 1820, 1720, give or take a few years. But usually within 20 years or so, there's always, you know, that's the margin. I would say it's about 20 years, but it's 120 at the most. Sometimes it's right on the nose. Sometimes it's 100 years right on the dot. But as we can see here, this is Paris in 1903, and it looks like something I can't even, what would you compare it to? You know, you could compare it to other places in the world at the same time that had very similar architecture, similar design, and a similar culture. You know, At the time, France still had influence in Russia during the reign of the Tsars before the Bolsheviks took over. Now you can say what you want. Everyone's entitled to their own belief, but the Bolsheviks destroyed the culture. The Bolsheviks destroyed the churches, the temples, the energy stations, the old Tartarian architecture. A lot of it was devastated by the Bolsheviks when they took over during the Bloody Revolution in 1917. So there's that, and that was about 100 years ago. Now we see what's going on around the world with upheaval and cries and demands for socialism. Now, I'm not going to get into politics on this channel. If somebody wants me to do a Patreon only video for politics, let me know. Send me a message on Patreon or Instagram or YouTube or wherever, and maybe I'll do a video specifically about politics and how it relates to the old world and the Great Reset and this new reset and all the other resets. But here we have the famous moving walkway of the Paris World's Fair. I know this has been shown in a lot of other people's videos. It's definitely very interesting example of the technology at the time, and I think that there was even talks to try to implement this in all major cities as a means of conveyance for pedestrians. Obviously, the logistics of that wouldn't work when you have the possibility of people falling over on it, falling asleep on it, the people getting injured, the equipment getting damaged. But nonetheless, it's interesting to see how it was represented here with the inheritors. They seem to be getting a kick out of it. It's like they're at an amusement park or something. So that's cool. You know, I that's the thing, is you can't say much about the old world meeting the new world without the inheritors and their role. And people say, oh, I can trace my lineage back to so-and-so, and this was my father and all. Well, I don't doubt that. I'm not saying that these people aren't real. I'm saying that they were originally brought in from the old country, from the old world. And that's a proven fact. Some of these people, a lot of them were from places that didn't even have electricity. They didn't even have running water. And they were snatched up and they were told to come to the United States, or they were told to go to Western Europe. Okay, I'm talking about countries like Poland, Yugoslavia, which is now Croatia, Romania, Hungary, Latvia, Estonia, places like that. Places that where people were living a much different life, and they were told that they could have a better life here as inheritors, because there was a mud flood and a lot of people died and they needed new people to come in. Now, a lot of people ask me in the comments on Instagram and YouTube, who are the inheritors? What are the inheritors? What, all that? And I can't answer it. It's hard to answer in text, so I'll just explain here. That's what I think happened. And this is evident here because these people did not build this stuff. They inherited it. They came into it. And they have all these stories about who built it. But just watch the video here. You know? This is a series of films that I found and spliced together to give you guys a better picture, a better perspective of the juxtaposition, the dichotomy of the horses and the buildings here, and the people looking so confused. So that's it right now. Like I said, this is a Patreon only video, so it's a little bit different format. So once again, thank you to all my Patreons. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.